I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Yvonne Blaszczyk, President and CEO of BMG Group. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you back as always.
Happy New Year. It's wonderful to be back.
Yes. And certainly we have so many different topics to get into as we're heading into the new year. I wanted to start with gold, of course. We're catching up on our conversation from all the way back in October when gold was just getting to the 4,000 level. For you, I think it was no surprise to see it get to that price. And now as we're looking forward to 2026, I want to ask you about the gold price in the next 12 months. How high do you think it can go?
It is going to probably go to about 5,000 in the first quarter. I spoke to you and to other people about 4,000 about a year ago and 3,000 2 years ago. Now it's even more realistic to look at the 5,000 gold and maybe even more. There are so many factors right now influencing the price of gold. And of course, what has happened just recently this weekend. It has a huge impact on gold and precious metals, more than on anything else. So I wanted to speak about Venezuela, but not as a crisis, but as an opportunity that has to be taken in a broader context of historical Venezuela, South American historical context, and geopolitical framework. Including the economic policies and impact of international pressures and imploding. Venezuela has been imploding from inside for a very, very long time. And of course, that immediately affected a sharp, impact on gold. It rallied by almost 2% to $4,400 per ounce as investors reacted to the sudden escalation of risk, not only in Venezuela, but in Latin America. Also the U.S. military dramatic capture of the Venezuelan president Maduro over the weekend has a huge impact on, of course, the pressure that everyone was already feeling for quite some time. This unexpected, or rather from my perspective, expected intervention prompted a new rush towards gold as a safe haven asset. Silver also is impacted, and platinum as well. I do believe that platinum is going to become in 2026 a huge strategic military asset because of its applications in producing explosives and jet fuel. But gold is money. Gold is stability, and any kind of a broader geopolitical fragmentation will impact positively gold. So gold is far from reaching its ultimate high. So we are on an upward trend. Now, the Venezuela, I just wanted to mention a couple of things about Venezuela because as everyone is watching and looking at what is occurring, many people actually predicted and were expecting that something is going to happen in Venezuela. The controversy around the president was not only out of Venezuela, Maduro was not only from outside, but also from inside. And I know this kind of a amazing rise of power from the bus driver to the pet of Chavez, then to the president of Venezuela. But, many times behind the powerful men are brilliant women. Celia, his wife, is a lawyer, and she was a lawyer for Chavez. So I would suspect that she had a huge impact on actually managing the internal affairs. The controversy inside was even simple as questioning Maduro's nationality. He was born into a Colombian family from a border town in Colombia. And only in 2016, the Supreme Tribunal, of course, under his control, affirmed that he was born in Caracas. So there was a lot of issues. But Venezuela is not only a rich country in oil, the largest reserves in the world, but also gold and other precious metals. The whole area of Orinoco River is unexplored yet. So there are a lot of opportunities, but country has been suffering a horrible crisis for such a long time. I remember going to Venezuela before Chavez. Venezuela was a extremely dangerous place with many armed gangs. There are millions of people living in ranchos on the mountain of Caracas. Places that are very scary in terms of lawless places. So now, what is happening? There's a huge possibility of having some civil riots and domestic war. At the same time, I think the entire Latin America is very closely knitted that we may not understand. They may have differences among themselves, but at the end of the day, they will all band together. So this is a very, very complex situation, but it's a huge opportunity. I think it was a huge opportunity, a strategic movement on part of the US to actually execute this operation on many, many levels. But the impact is really financial. I'm looking at what will happen to petrodollar in the future. Will US be able to maintain the US currency as a reserve currency? What is the reaction of BRICS countries? And this is actually very, very interesting because Venezuela having largest oil supplies, of course, is a gigantic potential, but not right away. They actually produce only 1% of global production because of the inefficiency, because of the collapse of the entire infrastructure in Venezuela under Chavez and nationalizing all the oil production. So there is a lot of moral judgments going on Venezuelan politics. There is a lot of I think pseudo-legal interpretations. But the focus should be on really on economy and the shocks that will or the impact that will have on the international markets and the risks that are going to impose on everyone. Amazingly enough, the BRICS countries are quite silent. Nobody really spoke aggressively against U.S. actions, and I don't think anyone will. This is an amazing test to see how far one can go in terms of securing your own country, your own currency, your own strategic position. Now, in terms of precious metals, it's going to be a huge upswing and an interest in gold and other precious metals because of what's happening in Venezuela. The oil prices may be affected and lowered in a longer, in some time. It will take a very long time to rebuild the oil infrastructure in Venezuela. But it may not be such a long time to actually try exploring gold and mining gold in Venezuela, which would be very interesting. Since the global financial crisis in 2008, especially over the last 5 years, central banks, as you know, and we spoke about them many times, have been buying and a huge amount of gold. They are still continuing doing that. There are growing concerns still about dominance of the US dollar in the international monetary system. The geopolitical fragmentation is not only global. Europe has a huge geopolitical fragmentation now and a lot of concern with energy. And European countries, they have a very idealistic approach to everything. And they are speaking about the law, about all that, but they are not effective. They are ineffective. The other thing that has emerged is absolutely ineffective role of United Nations. United Nations is a very expensive proposition for United States in particular. It's totally ineffective. It's a lovely trip to New York from many parts of the world when the dignitaries come, but they do not have an impact on anything that is going to come in the future. And they will have very limited impact going forward. So we have to question what will happen to United Nations. Will US support it? Will US support NATO? That's another question. So, but all those things you have to follow the money, go to the financial systems. There are many countries on the kind of opposite political spectrum, like China, Russia, Turkey and India. There are not that on the opposite side, but they've been amassing huge amount of reserves in gold, very aggressively, and typically conducted through the discrete transactions. Many transactions are not on the public markets. So we don't really have a exact fix what is happening, but gold is the only reserve asset that provides the stability and security, both militarily and of course financially, in terms of the sustainability of any country. For example, I'm just going to go back to the gold in Venezuela. There is a company, Orinoco Mining, something, and that company under the Maduro administration, they had about they explored or they about 7,000 metric tons of gold. And that's a very kind of very conservative number because they don't have the infrastructure to actually do that. So given them American reserves that only 8 tons of gold approximately, US is already the largest holders of strategic gold. Having an access to Venezuelan gold would create a huge opportunity for United States, but at the same time would strategically put us on a war path with China. China is a big issue. I think China is very quiet, as you know, with this whole situation in Venezuela, and they are building alliances with other South American countries, Latin American countries. A lot of them, they were not exactly in a best of relationships with Maduro's government. So there is another market or another system is being created from this particular incident, and that was expected. That was absolutely expected, not in the way it was done. It was like from a movie. It was the action movie. However, it was a time for the system to implode, and I'm sure a lot of internal fractures in Venezuela, in Caracas, were very instrumental and very happy in facilitating this whole situation. Now, Europe is very interesting. The gold matters beyond beyond the United States, beyond China. European businessmen, European investors, European governments, they are bit distant from the Venezuela and from North America. They are very conscious about supporting US and not being seen as oppositional, because many times their governments and their own infrastructure is so dependent on the whims and support from United States. However, all commodity markets are interconnected, and any geopolitical instability in anywhere affects asset prices, particularly in Europe. Europe that is not well positioned from the energy perspective, and also not well positioned in terms of their own European Union and their relationship with the individual members. Yes, this Venezuelan crisis, it's not crisis. For Venezuela is crisis, for us is an opportunity, is reshaping or may reshape the international order, financial order. Yes, the reassertion of United States military as a power and sphere of influence, and the fragility of all the oil producing countries, which includes Iran, Russia, is becoming more and more salient. And the energy concerns are magnified beyond what we can really understand. That's why you had such a lame response from Europe. They were citing various interpretations of legal possible, transgression without teeth, but no immediate consequences, ineffectiveness of UN in resolving conflicts. So all those things came to a surface. So it's going to be very, very interesting. That's I think is a golden opportunity. Is amazing for gold, for platinum, and for silver. And gold, 2025 actually performed over 63%. So that's amazing. When a US dollar was 4%, Bitcoin minus 5% or something like that. So it is a best performing asset, the most secure asset, and gold is money.
I think that's a great overview of, as you said, a very complex situation. And I want to talk a little bit more about this lack of global reaction to what's going on with the US and Venezuela that you've been outlining. I'm wondering, I think, so you saw this coming. You mentioned others saw this coming. A question that people have right now is what happens next? So the US has done this action. They have had not such a global reaction as you've been outlining. So what does that tell the US that it can do next? I know there's lots of questions on, will it take similar actions in different countries? So what do you see coming?
Well, I think a lot of the geopolitical system are based on the historical treaties and agreements. A lot of them did not really contemplate the situation that we have right now. So what it gives to US is a test on the international reaction, and it has been very lame. That means because also they focus on the low-hanging fruit. So there is kind of a mixed reaction. People are happy that this regime is gone. Some countries are not happy because they think that the sphere of influence of US is increased tremendously. But at the same time, the reality of having a control over Venezuela oil is a rather remote goal because of its complexities. In reality, it will not be that easy. However, politically, what is happening next, I think, item on the agenda on everyone's mind is Greenland. And this is very, very interesting. Greenland, I think what really, happened to Greenland is it has been coming. Greenland, so let's start with President Trump cited that Greenland is required for national security, and of course, having a Arctic island is a huge strategic advantage. But one has to go back, what are the legalities of it? And will the world react the same way? Probably, but also something is more complex. Greenland, probably that many people know, was really a Inuit people's place that was actually colonialized by Denmark only in the 18th century. And in 1916, United States bought a Danish West Indies, today known as a U.S. Virgin Islands, for $25 million in gold. $25 million of this bought U.S. Virgin Islands. So, and at that same time, when they were making an agreement, the political and economic interest of the whole Greenland was formally recognized as a Danish territory. Sovereign territory. Now, I have not read or seen the actual agreement, but I'm sure that the language is not as tight. The United States could actually take over Greenland legally. And as a precedent would be the sale of a U.S. Virgin Island, and that entire guarantee that will become a Danish sovereign territory. Also, Denmark has a strained relationship with Greenland, so I think that would be probably even less reaction than what has happened in Caracas in Venezuela. At the same time, some people that really believe that are in a different thinking zone, think that, oh my goodness, Greenland is a part of NATO. What will happen? What will happen to United Nations? It will fall apart. It will not fall apart because of Greenland. It will fall apart because outlived its purpose. United Nations was created after World War II for a certain purpose and has failed. It has a very lame or no impact on resolving international crisis. As I said, it's a very nice trip to New York from people from different third world countries that have really no impact. The major players is United States, China, and Russia. And they always were. That's why they have a veto power. So Greenland, that's probably the next step. And I don't think there'll be too much of a reaction based on what is happening right now. Cuba has been vulnerable for a very long time. The embargo still stands in Cuba. So that will be the same kind of a, situation. Now, in terms of the alliance that Cuba has with Russia or with China, just like Venezuela, how strong that is, we don't know. What would that be really a worthwhile for those countries to risk other relationships and economic, political confrontations for that particular geographic place? Probably not. No, but Canada is off the hook. I think there is so much going on that we do not have to worry. However, it is a very interesting situation. I think in Europe, in particularly, there'll be a serious crisis, and most probably European Union will lose some members or become some other organization or cease to exist, which will affect prices of everything in Europe except gold. So again, the gold is where one should be. Probably for gold like this, you can buy a palace in Europe in a few years from now, presidential palace. But it's a very, very interesting situation because gold has been on a rise, as you know, for a number of years now, because of the political instability, because of BRICS countries, kind of a rise to prominence. Now, this is very interesting because I was thinking, what's happening to BRICS countries? They are very silent. Nobody's criticizing directly US. We know that each of them they have issues. There's a huge competition. And what is China's role in propelling, right now, keeping it down and then propelling the creation of the different, reserve currency in competition with US dollar? That's a huge question. The other question is, as you know, South Africa is part of BRICS and they're a major producer of platinum. So is Russia. Platinum, in order to make sure that you are a military dominant, and then you need platinum for military purposes. So how that's going to play out is going to be very interesting.
It will be really interesting. Yeah, maybe can you tell me a little bit more about platinum in the military, because that's not an application that I have heard much about for that metal.
The platinum is required to production of explosives and jet fuel. Platinum has application in the chemical productions, in all sorts of applications that secure required for national security for many countries. And platinum has lost its relationship to gold, as you know, some years ago, and it's coming up. So I think in the future, platinum will be again on par with gold and maybe exceed the value of gold. So that's an asset that was overlooked because gold is money. Platinum is, I do believe platinum is a military superiority. And silver is of course also of other applications and silver is inexpensive. It's a poor man's gold. So it's very attractive for investors to invest and as a huge gains in the last while. Silver right now, silver is $78 an ounce, and it used to be like 18. So it's amazing. But also platinum is over $2,000 from $800. So all those precious metals play a huge role in our financial systems and political systems. Not only why countries want to have a superiority or sphere of influence to sustain themselves. with having international influence and influence over other countries, over other economies, actually creates a peace within the country. Any kind of all countries in the world right now are fractured. There are domestic issues in US, everywhere. There are divisions. There are divided, and having a larger control of the sphere beyond your own country can help to repair some of the fractured issues within. The only problem is, I was just looking actually, the US debt is right now 38 trillion. Has grown. So the impact of the revenue from international trade and all other savings have a very minute impact on actually the deficit. So the deficit is growing, and that's a huge danger. So one has to look into kind of a larger picture and have a larger sphere of influence and assert certain dominance in order to even attempt to reduce or amend that kind of level of debt.
Right. And on that note, so we know that we need gold, silver, and as you mentioned, platinum in these circumstances. But really, it seems like this is about resources as a whole. You mentioned the oil opportunity attached to Venezuela for the US. Greenland, we know, is rich in resources as well. They've got rare earths. So I wonder if you have any comments there that you can share about the general need for resources for countries in the world today.
Well, one country that really needs resources in a almost critical level is China. China has a huge population but no resources. For China, this current situation with Russia is very good because they can basically twist their arms and exploit whole Siberia and all that area. They're very rich in resources, but that's not enough. China needs to move further in order to sustain themselves. So there is this quest for resources. These rare earth minerals, you can actually list them to what they are, and you can geographically plot them on the map. And then you will see which countries are going to be in focus for some sort of not takeover, but a target to either for cooperation or to help them extract those resources. Most of the countries that have fantastic resources are underdeveloped. They are not in a position to actually extract those rare minerals and other things from their own soil. So they need assistance. Because of politics, they are not open to it. Because of other complexities, there are problems. So, for example, when you think in Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, Brazil in particular is gold mine for everything around Amazon. Amazonia and the same thing is Orinoco, Venezuela. Then you have, of course, in Russia, you have in Africa. So what will happen eventually, we have to do something. Maybe the world will focus on, let's build some cooperation in order to have a mutual exploration of those resources. We provide technology. We provide the know-how, and you will provide us with the leases to share those resources. This is not only political and military sustainability. I think it's sustainability for humanity, to explore and extract minerals in a way that does not destroy our planet. I think that's very important. But in terms of financial systems, gold is money and will remain as money. And whoever will actually back their currency with gold will actually be able to sustain their own existence. And that's why central banks are building a huge reserves of gold. Now, in terms of oil, it's not that simple. Venezuela has the largest reserves of oil, but very low production. Plus their oil, the crude oil, is very specific for a certain refineries. So that's not just like suddenly Exxon was going to move in and everybody's going to make $1 billion and every citizen of Venezuela will have a villa on the ocean. It will not occur. It will not happen like that. It's going to be a very dangerous territory. I don't know how many employees of Exxon would like to right now work in Venezuela for any amount of money. What it will take to rebuild the infrastructure that has been in ruin for 30 years, 20 years, maybe even longer. There were also, as you know, legal battles when Venezuela nationalized the oil industry. So they had to pay some sort of penalties in billions to the oil companies. However, the oil still belongs to the country of the origin. There are leases, there are legal things. So it's not such a simple matter. However, having an influence over Venezuela is very important, and Venezuela is a golden gate to natural resources and to Latin America. So that's what's happening. There was a mention, I think President Trump mentioned the Monroe Doctrine. People are history buffs are thinking about the different times. When all those doctrines were conceived, the world was very different. Technology, the growth of population, everything else has changed. So the sphere of influence and domination depends on a lot of things, but I think it depends on how much gold one has and how much water, particularly water. You cannot drink oil. You cannot, oil is not the currency. Oil is, and there are perhaps, there are many different, alternatives to fossil fuels that were, contemplated. But at the end of the day, fossil fuels will stay. Gold will be money in the years to come, probably forever. In terms of the geopolitical configuration of the world, we are witnessing history right now. And all we know that everybody is so interdependent. That's why you have such a very muted reaction from the world, what happened in Venezuela. Some people love it. Some people are concerned about their own sovereign states. But most of the countries, the rulers, are concerned about themselves. They don't want to be plucked out of the bed in the middle of the night if they do something wrong. And there's many places in the world where a lot of systems are not only corrupt, but they are inhumane. And there is a lot of fear going on. Those that have actually a very appropriate legal systems, they still are fraught with a lot of problems. So there's a lot of personal concern, more than humanitarian concern for Venezuela or their people. And the biggest concern is right now is that, I think that there be no interruptions in oil production, no interruptions in energy supply. Now we're coming out of winter, so that won't be such a big concern. But when you look at how this world will evolve in next few months, it will be very, very important. I think that U.S. will take over Greenland quite legally with no opposition. I think members of United Nations will be more concerned about preserving their jobs there than sticking their neck out for anybody. And really Greenland, the colonies are really outdated. As a Danish colony and the sovereignty guaranteed by United States in 1916 by buying U.S. Virgin Islands from them is not exactly the solid ground to actually oppose what is happening. We cannot oppose, we cannot oppose the storm. Sailors know that, but we can adjust the sails. And I think that's what we have to do. So if you have a boat with the sails, and you're coming across a heavy geopolitical winds and the boat is full of gold, just adjust your sails and you will succeed. Reach your destination.
Well, I think that is a great place for us to wrap up. You've given such a good overview of the situation right now, and we know that we need to have our precious metals. So thank you so much. We'll make sure to have you back as this situation develops. And again, Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Of course. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Yvonne Blaszczyk with BMG Group.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below.